It is time for the one and only, the premier, the only official podcast of Pro Rodeo. Your Chute Bosses are ready, so let's give it a go and talk some rodeo.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Chute Bosses, the official podcast of Pro Rodeo. It's Tanner Barth and Tracy Rink here for another show. Trace, just a couple weeks left to go in the Pro Rodeo regular season. Puyallup wrapped up, and what a great event that was, and kind of set the stage for Sioux Falls, South Dakota coming up for the Cinch Playoffs Governor's Cup, and that's going to be a heck of an event. I was just looking through some of our records and stats from last year. Stetson Wright won $40,000 in the bull riding. Coleman Proctor, Logan Medlin, $35,000 each in the team roping. Yep. It can really alter the race for a gold buckle, and it is kind of a preview of the National Finals Rodeo.
Yeah, I mean, the best of the best are going to be there. Most all those guys are NFR guys. I mean, they'd have to be, I would think, outside of maybe injuries or different things. And the cool part is the all-around race is going to get impacted there with Coleman Proctor. If he can do well, he did well in Puyallup. They won Sioux Falls last year. And last year, Mason Clemens came from, 21st or 12th? He won $28,000. I'm interested to see who that person is. And obviously, before that, we have Mandan this weekend that pays, $500,000?
Yeah. So,
I mean, you have two huge rodeos right before the end of the year. And the whole time I've ever been here, we've never had two like that. I mean, we have never had one, $1.3 million like Sioux Falls, and it's a great rodeo. And then to have one right in front of it, I mean, basically $2 million in prize money the last 10 days of the season.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to shake out with all that money up for grabs. You mentioned Coleman Proctor. Shad Mayfield also going to be there. That all-around race is kind of, starting to shake out a little bit. Shad obviously at the top in second place right now is Junior Negata, followed up by Coleman Proctor, then Wasey Shalla in the number 4 spot in that all-around race.
Don't forget about my boy Tough Cooper.
Yeah, he's down there.
He's top 5.
Yeah, I think he's
fifth.
He's
doing the steer roping.
Yeah,
and Tough was always in the
back.
mix.
Yeah.
When he was doing steer roping, he just admitted to me, and we talked to Coleman about this. You kind of have to commit to the steer roping,
a little bit, yeah.
And you got to have the horse to do it. It'll be interesting to see what Coleman, if Coleman, we're speaking in the show now, if he can get to the NFSR, because there's so much money there. Even if you don't do great there, you could still win an extra maybe $25,000, which would help him immensely in the all-around race. And I'm excited to see that all-around race. I mean, it's been tight a few times that I've been here, but never. I mean, the last time was 2016 and 18 where it came down to round 10. Because since 19, it's really kind of been, Stetson's won, when's he going to win?
Yeah.
So now it's not going to be that way.
Another guy chasing a gold buckle, that's steer wrestler Dakota Eldridge, and we're going to sit down and talk with him here on the Chute Bosses. He'll be your featured interview guest here today, Tracy. And Dakota's a guy that has been a model of consistency throughout his career. 10 trips to the NFR in Las Vegas, a couple of average titles, been close to a world title. Is this the year he gets that world title? He's set number 2 in the world standings right now.
Well, he knows how to win in Vegas.
He does.
It's just a matter of can he stay consistent enough and not have. I know last year in round 9 you have something stop or your horse doesn't do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see who he wants to ride in Vegas. He's ridden so many good horses this year. That'll play a part in it as well. I'm excited to see a veteran like that. Can he pull it out? I mean, Wagaspack's proved that the last 2 years. A guy can pull a rabbit out of the hat in round 10. Can Wag get there and make an impact himself? He's hustling everything he's got to try to get there. But Dalton Massey had everything on the line, and Massey's there again. And Massey's a guy he never even really took rodeo that serious. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden he started getting horses and he started getting really good at it. But a guy like Dakota, he would have had every single year he's been in the rodeo business at the NFR. He had a knee injury a few years back. That's the only reason he hasn't been every single year. He's kind of like Barry Sanders. He's just every year he's done great.
Yeah.
The only thing he's missing is that gold buckle, and I know he wants it.
Yep, no doubt about that. And we want to remind you this episode is sponsored by Las Vegas, the home of the NFR for 39 years. You can come see why Vegas is the sports and entertainment capital of the world this December in Las Vegas when Pro Rodeo's best saddle up and ride at the NFR. And that's going to lead us right into our short round in a pretty big change, Tracy, coming to that Wrangler National Finals Rodeo presented by Teton Ridge. We will have a review system that will be implemented at the upcoming NFR. This is something that's been talked about now for a couple of years in Pro Rodeo. There's so much money up for grabs. We mentioned the huge purse, and just as of this week, that review system approved, and now we're going to see how it shakes out for 10 nights in Vegas.
And basically, the review system is instant replay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the verbiage they're using. But And then there's going to be modifications to what you can and can't review and can review. But the fact that it's there tells you how far we've progressed in rodeo, because we never thought it would happen. And if it should happen anywhere to start, then be legitimately there, it's the NFR, because, I mean, so much is on the line. I thought initially thinking it's like review with NFL, oh my gosh, you're going to have like 5-minute delays. We're going to go to station, advertises. From what I've been told and what I believe is going to happen, it's going to be super quick. It's not going to be, they're not going to hold up the performance, maybe a tiny bit, because you got to look at something, but it's going to roll super fast and it's going to happen super fast. But the option's there. At least now the option's there. Nothing's perfect. These Cowboys, there's going to be guys that maybe think that they're going to get jobbed on replay, this or that, but at least it's now there. There's times in the past where guys I know thought they deserved a rewrite, or they didn't not, or whatever it may be, and it's like, hey, thanks for coming, bud. Like,
well, the thing is, we don't want to be the ones to ever talk down at officials, but I'm sure at a time or two, Tracy, it's maybe cost a guy a world title.
Oh, there's no question. Yeah. There's no question. A guy maybe nodded his head.
Missed his mark out.
His mark out. And I mean, the mark out's, so subjective anyway. I mean, I watched Jacobs Crawley miss his mark out to win the world in 2017 in round 10. And Wright ended up winning. I mean, all he had to do was ride the horse, and he missed his mark. And I don't know if that was legitimate or not, but at least now there's the replay available on a, world championship deciding run that you can at least look at things. And they can look at it throughout the NFR. But, on tie-down roping and different things, it's just good to have available, because to me, I mean, and, they don't care what I think necessarily, but it validates the sport more.
Yeah.
Because you start having replay in a world championship event, it at least validates the fact that there's so much involved here. We want to put the best competition on display, but we want to use the technology as best we can to get the true winner, to get the true results that should be there.
Well, you look at the NFL, anything that can be done with a judgment of a person, I think that review system is rightfully put in place and gives these guys an opportunity. And to go into a little bit more detail about that, only 6 specific calls can be reviewed, Tracy, and only calls made in arena by pro officials will be reviewed. So if it's a non-call, there will be no review. It cannot be reviewed. So if you get called for, let's see, some of the things that can be challenged in this system: competing before breaking the plane of the barrier, crossfire in team roping, a livestock infraction when it comes to the tie-down roping, spur out the mark-out roll and all those rough stock events, and then barrier malfunction in timed events, and then no nod in all events. Yeah. So it's definitely there. So this is a thing where, these Cowboys are going to have the opportunity to say, hey, man, I didn't nod my head. That steer or calf left before I was ready. We got to look that back, because that might have just cost me $110,000 and being able to feed my family for the rest of the year.
And the one that comes to mind to me, just the experience of going to the NFR so many times, and you've been there a handful of times now, the broken barrier one comes into play all the time. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. That one comes into play in the mark out. Those would be the two that, I would think would jump to the forefront, because if a guy breaks a barrier, it kills him in the average sometimes, or it kills him to win the round. And if you could review that, I think it'd be great.
So I don't think you're going to be able to review, Tracy, if they break it. You're going to be review if there's a barrier malfunction, or if they're competing before the barrier. So we don't want to get that out there wrong to people. It has nothing to do if a guy breaks a barrier. It's if he, throws his rope before he leaves the box,
that's my understanding.
or if the barrier malfunctions.
Right. Well, I should back up and clarify, because sometimes the barrier we've seen
has malfunction.
It has malfunction. And they weren't able to correct it. So, obviously the barrier issue would come into play with this, because the last thing you want to see is a malfunction to keep a guy from winning.
Yeah.
The mark out, for sure, definitely,
We've seen that all the time.
That happens all the time. And, they've said it for years. Certain guys, they thought, maybe didn't get it called, and certain guys do. But now at least you have the replay available to think that if you did get it called and it didn't happen, at least you can review it.
Well, how about that crossfire call a year ago that would have broke the team roping world record? Yeah. Coleman Proctor, Logan Medlin, 3.1 seconds in Vegas last year, and a crossfire is called, and, that was a controversial one as well. People are still talking about to this day. So it puts that blanket in place for these contestants with so much up for grabs.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's more pressure on officials now that it's there. I think,
or less,
Less. It's kind of like the NFL. I would think there might be a tiny bit less, because if you truly thought, oh my gosh, maybe I did miss it, you can review it and fix it. Like I'm the type of person, if you can fix it and make it right, whether you were wrong initially, make it right. I mean, it's like the NFL. If the guy scores a touchdown and the guy blows it and says he's down at the 1, and you can obviously see he scored, then he scored. Like, just make it right, so that way it validates the sport and gets the guy the money that they want to get to try to be a world champion.
Well, the thing of it is, Tracy, we talk about all these different things that happen in the sport of rodeo, and maybe now we'll see it more in Vegas because the judges, maybe the judges will throw more flags because they know that safety blanket is there. If they're wrong, it's not going to cost them. But if they're right, they want to make sure they get it right. So it's going to be interesting to see. And I believe it said that the person doing the replay fishing isn't going to be at the Thomas and Mack. He's going to be in a location by himself, multiple camera angles, and they're going to be able to make that decision in a split second. Whoever it ends up being, he or she, and it's going to be replayed right back into the Thomas and Mack, and we're going to roll on with the rodeo.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I mean, the biggest problem with the NFL, the billion-dollar corporation they have.
Sometimes it takes too long.
Well, they look on a replay screen that's like 2 inches big, and they have all this technology available, and you're looking at it like a grainy screen to try to see if a guy got across a first down or a goal line or where they caught a ball. It's like, really? Like, come on, NFL. So I hope that with the technology we have available, and especially in a place like Vegas. I mean, Vegas is a tech place as it is, so hopefully they get it right. I mean, there's going to be bumps in the road. I mean, it's new. Nothing's going to be perfect. I just like the fact that the option's available.
They send replay calls back to Secaucus, right? New York. They don't review them right there.
Well, no, they used to review them like on site a few years back, and then But the crazy thing is they weren't sending them back to New York. Like the head official at NFL games was like literally looking at a little black and white screen.
Okay, gotcha.
Because I speaking to my brother who covers as beat writer for the NFL for years, like the guys would sit next to him. The NFL guy making the call was like looking on some little black and white TV screen, and that's why they eventually moved it to New York. I mean, what are we doing here? Like, come on.
Hopefully, rodeo's better than that. We got to one up the NFL.
And from everything I've heard, I think it would be, and it's got to happen fast. I mean,
it does.
You can't. There's a lot of elements involved. You don't want to delay the show. I mean, you want the people.
We know we don't want that to happen.
Yeah, we wanted people to get out in Vegas and gamble and have fun in Vegas. We're not looking to cap it off at midnight and everybody rolling out. So. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to watch. And one guy that's fighting to try to get to Vegas, that's Ben Andersen. He's going to join us for our 8 questions. Yeah,
Ben's a great character. He's got a good sense of humor. Well, I mean, you guys did the Highwaymen on him.
Yeah, he's a great dude.
And he's got a booming voice, funny voice. I mean, he's Canadian, obviously.
Canadian to the core, bud.
Yeah, Canadian to the core. But, yeah, I caught up with him at the Calgary Stampede, and I believe you'll see Cade Bruno in the background because Cade Bruno was up there too, but at Calgary, and obviously he ended up getting the win there. But, yeah, Ben's a great guy. And maybe Ben gets in. There's so many – I mean, you think, oh, my gosh, these guys are in. And you look at those standings, and there's so many guys that are so packed in right now. I mean, these next 2 rodeos, this weekend and next weekend, it's just going to be crazy. And then what people need to understand is you have the element to review. They audit. The standings don't become official till October 15th, truly. So just because September 30th is out there, don't make the reservations just yet because everything has to clear the audit.
So let's go to Ben Andersen with your 8 questions.
Favorite movie?
Tombstone.
Favorite restaurant?
That's a tough one. Probably Keg.
Favorite horse you've ridden in the PRCA?
X9.
What would you name a horse?
What would I name a horse? Street cat.
Favorite hobby outside of rodeo?
Hunting.
Describe saddle bronc riding in 1 word.
Poetry.
Favorite ice cream?
Maple walnut.
Who would you want to be a tag team partner with, Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee?
Kid Bruno.
Yeah, and you could tell Bruno was there giving Ben a little bit of a hard time up in Calgary, Tracy.
Yeah, well, Bruno did 8 questions with me, but I couldn't hear Bruno's because Ben was answering them all. And then I told Ben, well, why don't you do the 8 questions? Like, yeah, sure. So then I turned over to him, and Bruno was watching. But
those guys are great.
The Calgary Stampede's an unbelievable place. It's just super loud and fun, but they enjoy their time up there. And, Ben's hopefully Ben gets in. I mean, it's just bizarre how crazy this money is at the end of the season now.
Going to be fun to see how it shakes out. Don't go anywhere. Much more coming your way on the Chute Bosses of your ProRodeo Hall of Fame Spotlight, your historic NFR moment of the week. And then we'll sit down with Dakota Eldridge at the back half of the show.
Farm life. means always hoping for the best, but planning for uncertainty. You have to be ready for the next everything, the next dawn, the next season, the next harvest, the next technology, the next challenge, and the next generation. No matter what comes your way, we can help keep you ready for the next.
Welcome back into the Chute Bosses podcast, the official podcast of ProRodeo. Tanner Barth and Tracy Rink. And Tracy, we talked about it off the top of the show, getting ready to sit down with Dakota Eldridge, trying to make his 11th trip to Las Vegas. I mean, he's going to make it. He's number 2 in the world standings right now. Looking forward to just chatting with Dakota and talking a little bit about rodeo and a little bit about life.
Yeah, he's a veteran of the sport. He's won 2 averages. He's been close to the gold buckle. I know that's his goal this year. Does a lot of hunting outside of rodeo. He's got, his wife Quincy. They do a lot within rodeo, and it's just good to catch up with him because he's one of those guys that's been around, and he's kind of a mentor to guys now because he's the veteran, and he's all of like 31 years old.
Yeah, seasoned veteran, as Tracy likes to say. Let's jump right into our ProRodeo Hall of Fame Spotlight, Tracy. And for this one, it's going to be, we talk a lot about animals and standout animals, but this is one of these saddle bronc horses that really took rodeo to the next level, back in its day, I guess, or in its prime. And it had to wait a long time to go into the ProRodeo Hall of Fame, but 2011 inductee, saddle bronc horse, war paint, a part of that Christensen Brothers string. And this war paint, back in the mid to late 50s was the best of the best. For the first time when the PRCA, or I guess back then it would have been the RCA,
RCA.
When they decided that they wanted to start naming, horses of the year, this was the horse that won it 3 straight years to begin this thing that we call Horse of the Year in Pro Rodeo.
Yeah, and it tells you how good the horse is. And the sad part is horses like that, so far back they get lost in time.
Yeah,
they probably deserve to be in the Hall of Fame years before, and then you forget. Like a lot of Hall of Fames is like most recent thing in your memory. Oh, they're going to get in the Hall of Fame. So it's glad to see the horse got its just due to go in the Hall of Fame in 2011 to win Horse of the Year 3 years in a row. There's not a lot of horses.
Very rare
that they do. They might win 3. But sometimes they're not in a row. It's just like bodacious and animals like that don't win 3 in a row. So that's a testament to the consistency of the horse. And the Christensen Brothers back in the day were probably the best stock hunters going down the road, or one of the best for sure.
Yeah, the best of the best. And I think one of the most impressive things about Warpaint, this is a horse that had a career that spanned over 2 decades, 90% buck-off rate. I'm sure it was a little different back in the day. Guys weren't maybe as savvy and as good as they are now, possibly. But a 90% buck-off rate with the saddle bronc horse, we look at it from today's perspective as unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be like every time you're getting bucked off. And there's horses like Descent are the same way. But those are legendary horses. I mean, any horse that can buck that many cowboys off in that long of a career, I mean, 90% in a short career is great. But 2 decades, I mean, that means the horse was great for a very long period of time, and no one could ride it or figure it out. And when they did, they got great scores as a test of the Horse of the Year 3 years in a row.
Yeah, definitely a Hall of Fame career there for the saddle bronc horse Warpaint, and that's going to lead us into some more, Hall of Fame legendary careers. Let's pull up our historic NFR moment of the week, Tracy, and this is just, the start of kind of a legacy for a family. Mm-hmm. We go back to the 2008 NFR in round 4. It's none other than Cody Wright, and we know the Wright name. His sons have gone on to do great things. His brothers have gone on to do great things in the sport of rodeo, but in round 4, ProRodeo Hall of Famer Cody Wright, 88.5 points. Let's give it a play here, Andrew.
As they put that together now, Sunday. No! Hey! Come on! Oh, man! What about the Utah Cowboy Cody Wright?
And how about that for Cody Wright, Tracy, as you can kind of see the replay running here behind us. But 88.5 points on Flying 5 Rodeo Sundance. And that ride kind of set the tone for Cody Wright to win his first gold buckle in Pro Rodeo.
Yeah, he won it in 08, 88.5 points. He won the world again in 10. And like you said, he set the path for his family to be the gold standard for saddle bronc riding. Obviously, Stetson rides bulls as well. But, I mean, it had to start somewhere. And what a ride. I mean, that horse was so showy there. Like those horses stop and they start doing what you want them to do, and that's how you get big points at the NFR.
Well, even back in 2008, we've seen so many historic NFR moments here on the Chute Bosses show, Tracy, but we've talked about how the scores used to be lower.
Yeah.
An 88.5 back then is probably a 92, 93-point ride nowadays.
They weren't giving out 88.5s in 2008. I mean, you could look at the record books. All the big scores started coming later, much later than that. So that tells you what the judges thought, because 88.5 probably to them was probably like a 92 or 93 now, because to get a 90 back then was, I mean, like hitting the lotto. Like they just rarely gave 90s. So, but it set up his career. It set up his family moving forward. And I think his family would have been good at saddle bronc riding, but they became great through the work that Cody put in. And Cody rodeoed till he was 41.
Yeah.
I mean, he was rodeoing at the NFR and not even doctoring out and coming back and still competing when he shouldn't have been competing because he was hurt. I mean, it tells you the passion he had to do it. And it's just great to see stuff like that. And then you see Cody at the NFR every year, because he helps out at the NFR every year now too. But it's just crazy when you look at those and you think, such a nice guy, and you see him now, and it's like, wow, it's almost kind of surreal.
Yeah, and it's awesome that he's been able to share that knowledge with his sons. They've got a ton of world championships. Looks like Statler could be making his first Wrangler National Finals Rodeo this year in Vegas, so that's going to be fun to watch. So all the Wright sons and Wright family tree is spreading out even further, and that's going to leave us into our viewer question, Tracy, and this one comes from Haley on Instagram. She wants to know, what was the location of the first National Circuit Finals Rodeo? And I know that a lot of people will think, well, forever, I think it was down in Florida. It's actually been in 7 different locations across the country, and ultimately that 7th one was when the name was changed to the NFR Open here in 2023 and 22, and now obviously it's here in Colorado Springs, but we have to go all the way back to Pocatello, Idaho, and it was there for a long time at Holt Arena.
Yeah, I mean, and it had great crowds, and everything was fantastic there. They ran into some, and I don't want to get into all the logistics of it. I think they ran into some tax problems. There were some issues there that had nothing to do with rodeo, that they ended up having to move it from the arena because the crowds weren't the issue. Everything was fantastic about it. And unfortunately, when they moved it from there, you can see how many times it moved.
Struggled to find another home.
Where they could get the attendance they wanted. I think now with the NFR Open in Springs, it's obviously proven that the crowds come out, and it's been great, and they really, really are supporting that, because there was times in Guthrie and Kissimmee and places, and they were great places to go. They just couldn't draw the crowd. So bringing the crowd there and making it such a big national event is cool. But yeah, Pocatello, Idaho, I mean, it has its place in rodeo history for sure.
No doubt about it. And do you want to address your family, or Andrew? You got something?
Yeah, before we get to CB Nation, I just wanted to say we're recording this on the 18th, and I just wanted to say shout out to Tanner Barth. It's his birthday today. This man does a lot of work for us here at the PRCA, and he deserves all the love. So show him some love in the comment section, and happy birthday, Tanner.
I'm getting old, Trace.
Yeah, and Tanner's 40th birthday gets to spend at the Chute Bosses.
Coming from you, that's rich, bud.
When you're only 21 like me, and you're with the 40-year-old here, I try to drag him around, keep him in the show. But no, Chute Boss Nation ask different questions all the time, and they asked me if I had a unibrow. I did it one time in high school. I was a unofficial member of the Flock of Seagulls, and I had the Flock of Seagulls hair going with the little part in the hair, and I had the action going, and I was all about it.
You were all about it?
Yeah.
What year was that?
1988.
I wasn't even born, Trace.
Yeah, I know. Gee, no, you're 40. You had to be born by then.
Yeah, exactly. But Tracy, one guy that could probably use a change in hairdo. He's had that long, nasty mop of a hairdo for almost a year now. That's Buck.
Yeah, Buck needs a new hairdo. I'm hoping Buck gets a new hairdo at the end of the season, and we move into some better Buck style. But he does have a cool word of the day that people might think's funny.
Let's go to him. He's got your Pro Rodeo word of the day.
I'm Buck, official correspondent of the Chute Bosses, the official podcast of the PRCA. My word for the day is jog. As in a lot of our NFR contestants who are qualifying will do a lot of jogging to get in shape. The only time Buck jogs is when his laxative is working. Oh my gosh, where's the bathroom?
Cowboying is in our blood. Cowboying is in our bruises. It's in our rain-soaked jackets. and our calloused hands tested by barbed wire and rope, our mud-stained boots to the crown of our resistol hat. You live out west for even the shortest time, and there's one thing you learn. You can't pretend out here. Resistol. We live it every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back into the Chute Bosses podcast, the official podcast of Pro Rodeo. Tanner Barth and Tracy Rink. And Tracy, we got a special guest joining us here on today's show. We're getting ready to sit down with 10-time NFR qualifier steer wrestler Dakota Eldridge.
Yeah, Dakota's been a model of consistency going to the NFR. Has won the average in Vegas. Pretty much won everything you can in Vegas except that gold buckle.
Dakota, we appreciate it, man. We know that a lot of people say, oh, July's over, the pro rodeo season slows down, but it seems like August and September just as busy. So we appreciate you taking a couple minutes here to sit down and chat with us.
You betcha. Thank you, guys.
First question I want to ask you, Dakota. I was chatting with you yesterday just a little bit about this. Best season, regular season anyways, of your pro rodeo career. Do you think that's what's been the case here in 2024?
Yeah, for sure. It all started off with a big win at Houston. And then it just escalated from there. I've never been in this position, but it made me hungrier than I ever have. And I'm thankful for my wife and my family supported me and like, hey, no, let's try to go in number one. And that's been a hard task to do. With Dalton. We've been kind of, he got ahead of me and he stayed there. I got pretty close, after Piala within like 5,000, and then he did good at Pendleton. So, but it's been a fun race all year. But these last two rodeos, man, it's anybody's ball game right there in the top five probably to go. There's, I guess, maybe top 3 or 4 probably to go in number one, as much money's left to be won.
Dakota, how much do you appreciate this? I mean, you've been doing this the long haul and been so consistent and so great at what you've done that you've been around to see all this money change to like life-changing money. Not that it wasn't good money before, but guys were qualifying for the NFR before in like 13 and 14 with like $65,000, $70,000. Now all of a sudden there's just tons of money out there to win, and obviously the NFR is going to pay $33,000 to round winners, $86,000 to average winners. What's it like to still be a part of that and have the ability to get some of that prize money yourself and still be as good as you are?
It's amazing. It costs a lot more to rodeo. So, I mean, your profit margin, I don't know if it's necessarily went up as much, but I mean, it's obviously went up. But my goodness, it's expensive. Flights, gas station. Seems like every time you go in the gas station, it's $20. But it is amazing, and I'm so excited for the future of rodeo because it's hard to put something blood, sweat, and tears in your whole life, and at the end of our careers, it's like we're not just going to be able to retire and sit back. Like we're going to have some supplemental income. And so, but it's neat to see that the money's getting there where it's like, hey, if you're smart and you can invest and, buy some real estate or, invest in some stocks or whatever, there is a chance where you could go home and, rodeo for 10 years. And, if it keeps going the way it is, you could go home and somewhat semi-retire. You probably still have to ride horses or have some cattle or do something. But man, I'm excited because it's hard to be 100% when there's got to be a backup plan after you've gave rodeo your whole life for the last 10, 15 years.
That brings up a good question. You mentioned that, traveling down the road and getting to go to all these different places, but the costs do pile up. Talk about steer wrestlers because it's a little unique. You go to a lot of rodeos where you're not riding your own horses. You're jumping a ride, mounting a ride out on somebody else's horses, or, your horses are in a trailer going to a different rodeo. So you're at this one and you're trying to figure out all the logistics. Talk a little bit about that because in steer wrestling, it's pretty unique.
Yeah. The steer wrestlers are one of the best group of guys. They're selfless. I mean, that's a good way to put it. They'll mount you. Granted, there's something they get out of it. They get 25% if they got the Hayes horse and the Bulloggen horse, but they're also sacrificing another run on that horse. They're sacrificing maybe you beating them, but it's at the end of the day, we all know that it's us versus that steer, but a great horse is key. And I've been fortunate to ride some great horses this year. I rode Tyson at the beginning of the year, and then I kind of switched there to Winston McGraw and Jarrett McGraw's horse, Swamper. I've rode Crush and rode Ben's a little bit. Clayton Hass's, Crush's, Ty Erickson's, of course. But man, to be able to ride that horse caliber, it's just it's unbelievable, and I'm so blessed and thankful for everybody to let me on because I'm at a point in my career now where when I got kids and wife that's got a business and it's nice to be able to fly home. I miss not having a great horse, but at the same time is I feel like I have more freedom and if I need to fly home and see the family or do something, I don't feel guilty leaving horses on the road with my buddies and having them take care of them.
You speak on horses. Wasn't it Rusty was the main horse you had for years, right? To kind of put your name on the map that you owned the horse?
Correct. Yep. I rode him all the way. I rode him from 2013 to 2019. And I mean, that horse, I was pretty particular on who I mounted, and I wish I could have mounted more guys, but that horse is part of the family. Some of these guys buy these horses and they try to pay the bills with them. That horse, he didn't owe me nothing. My grandpa raised him, and I knew he could prolong my career the longer I made him last. So I was pretty diligent on who I mounted. Like I said, I always wanted to help people out, but at the same time, I knew he just was one of those horses I could tell when he'd get tired and he couldn't take as many runs as like some of these horses do. I mean, and that's, anytime I ride a horse, or if I ask somebody to ride a horse, I say, hey, I completely understand if you got too many guys on or, just been a long week on them. I understand. I've been there, and man, those phone calls, you hate telling somebody no, but I have no hard feelings if somebody tells me no, their horse had too many runs or this and that, because I understand. I've been there, and it's hard to keep one sound, and it costs a lot of money to take them to the vet and feed them and keep them working 100%.
Dakota, you mentioned that horse you rode from 2013 to 2019. You've been in pro rodeo. I think what we mentioned those 10 trips to the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo, but you've had an opportunity to see this sport grow. Do you feel like a veteran now out on the road? I know a lot of the guys. You say you're a veteran in what? You're in your mid-30s type of thing.
Yeah, I was pretty blessed to make it when I was 21 or 22, and it's cool to rodeo with those guys like the Wade Sumter, Billy Bugenick, Jake Reinhardt, like Sean Mulligan, Travis Carnine, like those guys kind of, and Luke. I mean, Luke. I obviously rode with Luke down the road, but those guys, it was kind of on all the ends of their careers. But man, it was such a good group of guys. Jason Miller, Les Shepperson, I mean, I'm forgetting a bunch of them, but man, it was just neat. And those guys they take you under their wing and say, hey, no, jump in. Let's, my traveling partner at the time at Dodge City, he went home, or after Cheyenne went home, Seth Hopper, and he just had to go home and take care of some stuff. And I was entering Dodge City and all of them. And I remember getting in with Seth Brockman, Wade Sumter, and Big Jake Reinhardt, and Billy Bugenick. And those guys were like, no, come on, let's go. And hell, we went to Phillipsburg and Dodge City. And it was just, those are memories that stick out to me and I hope I can be impactful like that to some young kid if they need a ride or, need a little advice throughout their year. Cause it's a long road. I mean, this summer it seemed easy, but I've also know that I got to keep a good attitude. I went 1 week without winning a check, and it was tough. Even the position I was at, number 2 in the world, it was like, man, this sucks, But you got to keep that positive mindset and stick to your guns and just keep going at them.
Are you still hanging around the cooler in the bed of the pickup after these rodeos like some of those bulldoggers?
Man, I tell you what, I was really strict this spring and this winter on a diet and not drinking. But But during the summer, man, it's just honestly having a beer or two after the rodeos. It's just something about it, and it honestly kind of calms my nerves afterwards, where I'm not just so high strung um and it's just something about you make a good run, you go back and have a beer with your buddies. There's nothing better. But now that I'm home and I got a wife and two kids, and uh, man, that's when I got to get down to bit. That's when it's like, okay, this is another business I got. Like I got to be 100% for them. So honestly, when I come home, I'm a lot more strict on my eating, no drinking, or try not to drink, and it just like I said, trying to be 100% for my kids. When I'm out on the road, you got all day, you can go to the gym and, do whatever you got to do, but all you got to take care of is yourself. But when I'm home, it's like, man, if I drank too much or something, I got to cook breakfast for my girls and getting ready to go to school and this and that. It's a whole nother ball game. And I got a bunch of stuff to do on the ranch here and work out. And, oh man, it's a different process now. I'm not as young as I used to be. So long story short, yeah, when I'm home, I try not to drink as much.
You speak about where you're at in the world standings. Obviously, you've won the average twice at the NFR, and I know I spoke about how much money's available at the NFR, even for like the top three guys that finish in the average. How do you approach that as you get ready for Vegas? Is it the same mindset you've always had? Because obviously you've won the average before. I mean, do you try to make sure you stay in the average? I mean, I know guys go, at the barrier hard. I know it's fast in Vegas. What's kind of your mindset when you get there for the average?
I'm going to go at every steer like I'm trying to win a gold buckle. As far as the average, if it comes into play, around eight, 9, 10, or whatever, if it comes into play at round 8 or 9, then I'm going to or 7 even, I might do something a little different. But at the beginning, man, you just like last year, hell, I was winning the average, and ninth go around, I draw that steer that stopped, and boom, so you start safetying up, which granted, I wasn't trying to safety up last year. I just couldn't get Tyson punched off there as fast as I wanted and get the starts that I wanted. And it was working out. I mean, I'd won a little bit in the rounds, but man, that was a blow when I drew that steer that round and missed him. I mean, it was costly for everybody right there. And so you cannot, in my opinion, I don't think the average plays into my hand until, like I said, round 7.
For you, you mentioned that just a little bit. Take us back to the first time you stepped foot in the Thomas and Mack as a steer wrestler coming in to make your first trip to Las Vegas.
Man, I almost got goosebumps when you said that, because there's no other feeling that when you ride in there and they play Viva Las Vegas, it's unbelievable. Like I said, you get goosebumps. It's something I've dreamed of since I was a little kid. I remember I went there. I think the last time I went there before I made the finals was, well, I guess my rookie year. But the year before that, I think I went down there with my family and watched one round of the rodeo, and I told myself I'm not coming back there unless I have a reason or I made it. And the next year I won the rookie, and the following year I made the finals. And just something, I didn't want to be a spectator there. It was that arena is so electric, and it's like I said, I guess that's something I just told myself from the beginning. I didn't want to go down there and be a part of the party. I wanted to be in the party, like I wanted to be there for people to come watch and enjoy Vegas.
So we see your man cave behind you, the bear, the different things. I know I've talked to you in the past. What are some of the craziest hunts you've gone on, or the coolest things that you've been able to kill, that just part of, outside of rodeo, cool things you've done?
Yeah, man, I've been fortunate. I really fell in love with hunting. Oh, I guess after I started having some success in rodeo. I mean, I always grew up hunting a little bit, but I mean, now I'm a fanatic about it. And that bear hunt we went on, it in Alaska, southeast Alaska, is a brown bear, or grizzly, whatever, brown bear. And that was shot him at 60 yards. That was a crazy experience. I went with my father-in-law, and he got a moose. It was, yeah, it was wet and cold, and it was that's probably the most extreme hunt I've been on. I've killed some good elk in Nevada that are hanging up on the wall there. And the one fun hunt, I don't know if you guys can see it, those little tiny deer um, over there. That's when me and Mitch Pollock whipped Casey and Mason Field, or Casey Fields and Mason Clements. We whipped their butts down there in Mexico on this Hunt Wars challenge. Um, Man, it was a lot of fun, and to just be with your rodeo buddies and go hunting, that trip was fun. But I go to Mexico every year now. I'm addicted to that. They're little tiny whitetail, but I got a really good elk tag in Montana, archery elk tag, that I'm going to go hunt right after Sioux Falls. So
You talked a little bit about that. Yeah. Well, what was that like, packing out a moose and a bear up there in Alaska in wet, cold conditions?
yeah, the moose, it was a lot, and then you had to wear waders, and it was that was a tough pack out. I mean, a moose quarters, yeah. I mean, an elk quarter's heavy, but a moose quarter's damn sure heavy. Uh, but man, that's part of it. I mean, I love it. I just like misery loves company. I don't know. Now my father-in-law, on the other hand, I mean, it was snowing, raining, and I probably had 150 pounds in my pack, and um, I got a video on my phone that it's like I'm just smiling, enjoying it. Everybody else behind me is just, I mean, I don't know, but those memories, that's how you make memories right there, hard times, and you come home and see those memories on the wall, and remember the cold nights, and I mean, putting on wet waders, and I mean, it was extreme. We hauled the two hindquarters out of that moose and my father-in-law's, and we got back to camp that night. Another Packer kid, I got back before everybody, and put my moose quarter over there on some pine boughs and stuff, and tucked underneath the tree. And I don't know why we didn't hang him up in the tree, but the outfitter just said to put him over there. And then the other Packer kid put his other quarter over there. And the next morning, I went out there to check on that meat, and I went back, and I had asked, I said, John, I said, where'd you put your quarter at? And he said, I put it right by yours. And I was like, no, I was like, they're just one quarter. Well, I went back out there and saw some drag marks, and a brown bear had come right into camp there, and took that big hind quarter. I think it was like 2 or 3 miles. We'd packed it back, and yeah, so that was, it was within 100 yards of the tent. So that's the most extreme hunt I've been on, and well, like I said, to this day, I mean, I love that stuff.
The last thing, and I know you love hunting, what's the hardest thing to hunt? Like wild boar, or is there things that you maybe don't like to hunt, or the challenge of hunt, like that you just enjoy it?
Um, those little tiny deer in Mexico down there, those are probably the hardest deer to like find. They are just like, they call them the gray ghost, Coues deer. And it's awesome because the weather's great, and you can just sit down there and glass all day for them. Um, but probably like the hardest, most like physically demanding hunt is probably like a sheep hunt, Dall sheep or stone sheep, and that's something, or mountain goat. Um, and that's something on my bucket list. I don't have one booked yet, but I'm fixing to book one here in the near future. I don't know where I'll go or what outfit I'll go with, but that's just as like your physical. It it's just, you got to be in such good shape. It gives you something to strive for all year long, because if you're not, your success rate goes down tremendously. If you can't hike up those mountains and carry a 50, 60 pound pack, um, so that's probably your most. I haven't been on any sheep hunts, but that's probably your most demanding hunt right there.
I think we need to get you on one of those shows like Alone that you watch on Netflix, man. Those are pretty sweet. How's your survival skills? You ready to put in the application for that?
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, we watch a lot of Alone driving up and down the road. Seems like, I don't know, all of us rodeo guys seems like we're into that. It, yeah, I would be in for it. It'd be tough to be away from the family that long, but yeah, it's just something about being out in Mother Nature and being up in the mountains. There's nothing like it, you know. Even if I'm not hunting, you know, if I got a buddy, Mike Ritchie, up in Idaho, I'll just go help him and go guide some hunters. Even if I don't have a tag, it's not all about killing the animals or the trophies. It's just about getting out and getting away from our cell phones and the people and just the rush of, you know, rodeoing all year long. You're just around so many people. So, I mean, I love hunting with people and, like I said, or guiding people. But at the same time, I usually try to do at least one solo trip, you know, just where I'll just go by myself and backpack in there. And even if it's just here in California, I'll just backpack in there by myself and stay for a few days up to a week. There you can get a bear tag and a deer tag down here in California. So it just clears your mind and gets you ready for Vegas and try to go win as much money as you can.
I love it. Before we let you go here, one thing I want to ask you is a little bit about your wife, Quincy. You know, Rodeo Quincy is a brand that's really taken off. I know, as well as her joining kind of with the PRCA here. I'm not sure if we lost you or not, Dakota, but having an opportunity to have this moment and have your family grow through the clothing as well in pro rodeo. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we've been extremely blessed with my wife's business. She has busted her butt and she does day in and day out. And luckily she's got a great team. You know, and then we're blessed to be partnered with the PRCA now. And it's cool because it's kind of more men's designs where I can kind of throw in my opinions. I mean, I throw my opinions in whenever. She asked me, you know, what do you think? What do you think if I would wear this? I'm like, no, not a good idea, you know. But she asked my opinions a lot more on the PRCA merchandise, and man, it's just neat to be a part of something like that. And like I said, it's neat to see her drive because it's like we both got a passion. I mean, it is like a controlled chaos, you know, our lives. But you know, at the end of the day, you know, you stop and think about it. It's like, man, there'd be so many people that would want to be in our shoes. You know, it's like sometimes I think, well, I'd just like to just sit down and take a break and just have a 9 to 5. And it's like, you know what? Screw that. We got bigger dreams. We're going to keep busting butt. And when we get older and get our kids raised, we can relax then.
Love it.
So lastly, and I know you spoke on this several times, what would the gold buckle mean to you? I mean, I know your career doesn't need it. Obviously, you've accomplished so much, but this year you're obviously further in the world standings than you've ever been heading into Vegas. What would that gold buckle mean to you? Does it mean retirement? Does it mean keep going? What would that mean to you?
Yeah, it would mean everything to me, a gold buckle. It's something we all strive for. You know, I've also treated this like a business and made some good money along the way. But I had a buddy, it's been years ago. He said, well, you know, either way, it's not all about a gold buckle, you know, I've made a good living doing this. And man, I call bullshit on that. The only reason we do this is for a gold buckle. And, I mean, I've fed my family and made good money, but at the end of the day, the blood, sweat, and tears, I want a gold buckle out of this. I'm not going to chase it forever by any means, but man, I feel like this is the best chance I've had, and I feel like it's my year. And as far as retirement, you know, it would be awesome to walk out on top, but when you get into those winter rodeos, you know, they probably always bait you back in. You can't. I mean, how do you skip San Antonio and Houston and them when they pay that much money? So, I mean, I'm dang sure going to slow down the next year. Just try to go to the big rodeos, win at the big rodeos, and that was kind of my plan this year. You know, my goal was to win Houston and then set it up, and but then it was like all of a sudden I was in number one, and it was like, hey, I got to stay there. So it was like a complete different aspect. It's like, hey, if I win Houston, I'll just ease around and go to these few rodeos. But it's like, then I don't know, my gas pedal's been down harder this year than it ever has, seems like. So at the end of the day, yes, the gold buckle is everything. And like I said, I got 2 average buckles, or like you guys said, and they mean the world to me. But man, it's just something about saying you're a world champion. There's nothing better.
Well, we can't wait to see how it shakes out, Dakota. I know it'll be it's been a wild finish in the steer wrestling the last 2 years in Vegas. I don't expect anything less, but we look forward to seeing how it shakes out, and can't thank you enough for joining us here, man.
You bet, guys. It's good talking to you.
Thanks so much.
There it is, Dakota Eldridge, Tracy, and you can just tell that he wants that gold buckle. You know, we mentioned that steer wrestling, it's came down to night 10 the last 2 years, and it's been Tyler Waguespack, you know, probably a first ballot Hall of Famer that's been able to come in and win them both. And, you know, now this year it's kind of wide open. Tyler's still fighting to try to get into the NFR here in the last week or so.
Yeah, I mean, Waguespack, he'd probably be the first to admit he pulled a rabbit out of his hat 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, he had to have so many things happen. That might happen once, but
one of those things was Dakota missing that steer in round 9 last year.
And it had to happen, and he had to have everything happen for him to be the world champion, and it did, and he played his part in it. I remember the reason I asked Dakota about the gold buckle, because I was doing a lot of stuff with steer wrestling when I first started here at the PRCA, and I remember how heartbroken he was the last time he won the average, because both times he won the average, he was right there.
Really close.
He was right there to win the world, and it was within a few thousand here or there, and you could just see this average buckle is great, but and it's a great accomplishment. Very few guys win an NFR average buckle. So you could understand that he's getting up there in age, and he's not old, relatively speaking, but he understands that his window's now. This is my chance to do it. And it's so wide open, and there's so much money with the average and the round wins. Guy gets on a heater, gets on the right horse, and all of a sudden you're right there in the mix. I was glad to see him discuss, because we never want to see guys safety up in the average.
No.
But
we talked about that last week, because you remember you thought, maybe guys do need to pull back, and he said maybe in round 8 and 9 is when you can.
I'm glad he kind of addressed that, because at some point you got to look at you got to start looking at the stat sheet. Like, I can't be crazy guy in round 8 if I'm leading the average and get knocked out of the average, because you go from an $86,000 check to 0.
Yeah.
And guys will pass you on the round. Last night you could win $120,000. That's why it's so much different than before. When I first started, like, the most you could win on round 10 with the average was maybe $50,000.
Yeah.
Now it's 100. You win round 10 and the average, it's $120,000.
Yeah.
So you could be that far back. So that's why I think you have to put it into play. He's had great horses. He uses great horses, and he's a businessman. He understands how to get it done. It's just the grind, and can it all fit together? The steer wrestling community, what I love so much about him, and he addressed it, is they'll give you your own horse to beat you for a world championship. I mean, name any sport that says, "Oh yeah, take Patrick Mahomes off our team and let him quarterback you for the fourth quarter and let him be like." It's insane what these guys do, because they're selfless. And that's just to me, that's just the true character of the rodeo cowboy.
Yeah, going to be fun to watch it shake out in Vegas, and we can't thank Dakota enough for jumping on here and chatting with us. Regular season coming to an end, just about a week away. You'll have Sioux Falls. Tracy will get back and break all that down here on the next episode of the Chute Bosses. But until then, keep on rodeoing.
He's addicted to danger, ruled by passion and pride. To pain and fear he's no stranger, but his lust needs to be satisfied. Hooked on an 8-second ride.